Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, the greatest revolution in European football since the 1950s has dominated political, ethical and financial discourse over the past few days. The proposed billion-dollar European Super League plans may be over, but the outrage remains. I'll be getting the latest update here in London from football analyst and Arsenal Football TV host Dr. Kelechi Anyekude. And Africa's transformation to a circular economy that delivers monetary growth, jobs and positive environmental outcomes is a crucial component of the continent's post-pandemic recovery. Soren Bauer, president of Revolve Circular, will be speaking with me from Vienna, Austria, about the enormous potential for the continent if policymakers adopt these poverty-eradicating practices. Then later, I'll be reporting on the biggest company news stories of the week. But first, let's start the show with business news from here in the UK, where earlier this week, data released from the country's Office of National Statistics revealed that the unemployment rate had dropped to 4.9%. This is the second consecutive month it has fallen. Though economists believe Britain's labour market has finally stabilised, 5 million people are still relying on the government's job subsidies programme, which will be wound down in September. Separate data from the month of March revealed that 56,000 people fell off the company payrolls. This has pushed the total number of jobs lost since the onset of the pandemic to 813,000. In other UK business news, the Greensill lobbying scandal is growing after it emerged that a second Cabinet Office advisor was hired by the now defunct finance firm while he was still working for Whitehall. Over the past few days, several Conservative Party members, including Boris Johnson, have distanced themselves from the actions of its former Prime Minister. There are currently several ongoing investigations about how the founder of Greensill got into the heart of government during David Cameron's tenure. The Labour Party say there has been a return to the Tory sleaze of the 1990s. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by our business correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, this Tory sleaze slur doesn't seem to be going anywhere fast.
No, there seem to be new stories appearing all the time. Obviously, the main one for the last few weeks has been Greensill and David Cameron, the former British Prime Minister. Greensill being this financial services company that he was working on behalf of or lobbying the government for. And it turned out that he'd been sending text messages to the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, who'd been responding, and they'd been having meetings, and this was all a little bit underhand. Actually, nothing came of it, but that's sort of beside the point, because the argument is, should a former Prime Minister be operating in this way for a private company, and it all going so under the radar with text messages going to, number 11 Downing Street, and it's prompted no less than 7 different inquiries by parliamentary committees. So it's very serious, and the government has announced a review around the Greensill finance and the fact that Cameron was working for them, and nothing went ahead, but they're still looking into it, and that will be headed by a government lawyer, Nicholas Boardman, and he will report to Boris Johnson by the end of June. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting, because Boris Johnson himself, it's a lot of scrutiny. You're talking about sleaze. Well, that was obviously in the House of Commons when the leader of the opposition said it's just sleaze, because Boris Johnson's been caught up in a similar kind of thing, this time with James Dyson. Dyson is famous for Hoovers, obviously, the Hoover made by James Dyson. Well, during the height of the pandemic, the Conservative government were very worried about whether we're going to have enough ventilators, so they reached out to James Dyson to ask if he could make hundreds, thousands of more ventilators. And James Dyson started to then text Boris Johnson, asking him whether certain tax rules would be, forced upon him if he were to start making these ventilators. He says he was just trying to work out what the rules were and ensure that they were complying by them. But Boris was texting him back saying, "Don't worry, I will sort this. This will be fine." And then he was talking to Rishi Sunak to check things. So whether and again, this never actually went ahead. The government didn't get these ventilators in the end. They said they didn't need them. So again, it's more the fact that certain businessmen seem to be able to have a direct line to number 10 Downing Street and to the offices of power, and it's all about who you know. So I think this is sort of something that is being stuck on the Tory government and the Conservatives, and Labour obviously going to leap all over this. And they're probably hoping that these inquiries are going to maybe sort of draw a line under it, but it's not a good look.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Now over to our first topic. Plans for a breakaway European Super League have been left in tatters as all 6 English clubs have pulled out of the billion-dollar plans. Manchester City were the first Premier League side to officially withdraw from the competition. In a statement, ESL bosses stood by the venture and said it would reconsider the most appropriate steps to reshape the project. Initially spearheaded by Barcelona and Real Madrid, the proposed new venture was supposed to generate £4.6 billion for the first 15 members. All of the clubs involved have lost millions in revenue during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Critics argued the move was driven purely by money, would destroy domestic leagues and is against the integrity of the sport. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Arsenal Football TV host Dr. Kelechi Anyikude. He joins me now. Dr. Kelechi Anyikude, thanks so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. I see you dressed for the occasion. So what's your reaction? The big 6 EPL clubs have all pulled out.
It's great news. It's a win for football. It's a win for the fans. It's a win for those that love the beautiful game. And it's a win for everyone because we are against a closed league system. We are against an elitist league system. We are against a non-competitive league system. Sport is all about competition. Sport is all about fairness. Sport is all about respect. The European Super League was a farce, to be honest. It didn't represent what a normal working class fan represents. So we're happy that they have listened to the fans and they have pulled out. It's a welcome development.
I'm happy you mentioned the fans and I'm happy you mentioned all the stuff that football represents. One of the big things that you failed to mention, Kelechi, was money, because we know that sports, especially football, is about money. It has evolved so much. Fans were saying that it wasn't in their interest. But then I've got to say, especially from following you on social media, it is when the biggest clubs play that they get the most viewers. Isn't that part of the competition and of the sport? Watching Ronaldo play against Messi as often as possible?
Not as often as possible. I mean, if you look at the World Cup or the Nations Cup or the Euros, they come once every 4 years. You look forward to such games or such competitions. You know, they are special competitions. If Messi is playing Ronaldo, it's a special occasion. They don't just meet every day. They don't just create their own league and play week in, week out. It's going to be boring. It's going to be, I want to watch Arsenal versus Sparta Prague or something. I want to travel to Sparta Prague. I want to see other countries. I don't want to keep going to Spain and Italy every week, playing the same teams. I don't see the fun in it, to be honest. Football clubs, yeah, we're a sport. We're not a franchise. This is not America. This is a sport. We want to see relegation and promotion. As a fan, I enjoy watching, say, West Brom beat Chelsea. I'm gonna enjoy that because the lower club has been opportunity to play a bigger club and they've beat them at their game. And if you look at the league system at the moment, Arsenal, my club, were 9th or 10th. West Ham are in 4th. So what's the fairness there that a club in 10th, because you have a name and you have pedigree, then you're getting a European Super League you didn't actually deserve. So what's the merit system? That's what we are asking. You know, everything has to have its merit. Yes, the money involved and they are the owners. Respect to them, they think they can do whatever they want to do with their clubs that they own, but they should consult the fans. We are the custodians of the game. If you are playing Ronaldo versus Messi and you don't see any fan inside the stadium, would you like it? It's no longer a spectacle. It's going to flop. So you need to consult us and ask the fans what they want. You don't just announce something through the back door. You know, they're just caring about themselves. It's greed. It's all about the money. They just want to make more money. They think they can, you know, turn it to some, you know, NFL competition where there's no relegation, you know, you just play amongst yourselves. No, sorry. We like competition. We like seeing the underdogs win as well. Leicester won the league 4 years ago. People loved it. I mean, we came second. I was a sad development for me. But on the other hand, I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, fair play to them. They deserved it. They won it. I don't want a system whereby you have European Super League, 15 permanent members. So there's no consequence for failure. No, that's not how the system works. I'm sorry, no.
I want to talk about, you've mentioned the word elite a couple of times, and greed, not just you, of course. Even the Duke of Cambridge, Prince William, who's the president of the FA, has used that sentiment, as well as Prime Minister Boris Johnson and opposition Labour leaders. But how is the game supposed to evolve? We know that it evolved in the early 80s. I think at that time, English football had a pretty bad reputation. We also had that disaster, didn't we, in Liverpool. Some have described this as a natural evolution, particularly after COVID, where we know that these clubs lost millions in revenue, and several of the big clubs are in billions of pounds worth of debt.
Yeah, we understand that, but I mean, who is still going to pay the ticket? Who's going to buy the ticket? Are we not still in the same COVID pandemic? Is my pocket not being hit? Haven't I been at home? I've been at home. So all of us are in the same wahala. So they should manage us like that. You're expecting us to pay more money for you to make more money because you'll be hit. Me too, I've been hit. So who's going to give me money? You understand? We're all in this thing together. This was a very bad time to announce it. In a pandemic where people have been hit, people are dying, what you need to understand is that football clubs, especially in this country, are steeped in tradition. Like you see a fan who his season ticket was passed on to him by his grandfather. They remain the same seat, they maintain the same seat. You see, I was once in Liverpool and a 90-something-year-old fan saw him, walking. I was helping him. And he said he's just waiting for Liverpool to win the league before he dies. Wow. It's in his soul, it's in his blood. You cannot just shun them because you want to, maybe, the sport is already global. Maybe you want to, according to one of the founders, Perez, young people are no longer watching it, who might consider making the game shorter. Who told you to make the game? Who did you consult? Which young people? Where's the stats? Where's the data? You're just making excuses because you want to make more money for yourselves to buy your fancy yachts, your fancy islands. It's a working man's sport. We know you people are rich. In fact, these big clubs are already at advantage. You go to the FA Cup, they come in at the 5th round. You go to the Carabao Cup, they come in at the same round. They don't start with every other person. So you already have some advantage. So why are you now making it too elitist? We do not like elitists. We're all hardworking people. You understand? We do not like elitist movement. Just give us our sport as it is. We're enjoying it. Nobody is complaining.
No, absolutely.
There has to be a merit system.
You're right, Kelechi, and of course, you seem to have won this round in the very long war. ESL bosses released a statement saying, that they are going to revise plans. So this hasn't completely gone away. Do you agree with some of the back pages that are saying this has sparked a civil war in the game?
Yes, of course it has. I'm not here to preach for or in support of FIFA or UEFA. They have their own problems. You go to an FA Cup final or a final, they'll put it in a very far away country where there are no flights going there. Fans will suffer for 2 days to get there, or they'll sell the tickets to their sponsors and cronies and allocate a fraction to the fans. They have their own problems too. They are all after the money as well. But the difference is that there is a merit system, and we are okay with the merit system there at the moment. Also, I don't like the fact that anybody, because you have money, can wake up and break off from a league because you have money. What happens to the other 14? There's a pyramid. The money made in these leagues trickles down to even your local football club, wherever you live in London. It trickles down, but you want to grab the money for yourselves. No, we don't like that. They say they're going to reshape it, revamp it. We are still going to push back because you have to cater for the ordinary fan. You are playing for us. We are your customers. We'll take what we want. You cannot give us what we don't want. Sorry. We are not here for the halftime show. If I want to watch halftime show, I'll go and watch Super Bowl. You understand? And that's the only thing, because I don't understand NFL. That's the only thing I watch, and I off my TV. You understand? We are not here about franchise. You can do that with the NBA, which is fantastic. You can do that with the NFL, fine. They don't have relegation and promotion, fine. But we like the excitement. I like the excitement of going to Stoke, going to Burnley in the mud, rain. We like it. We like playing those small clubs. We like the banter. Don't come and remove the trio from us because you want to make money. No.
Well, absolutely. You've spoken, and you haven't just spoken for Arsenal fans. I think you've spoken for fans across Britain.
All fans stood up.
And possibly
them at Chelsea. They blocked the Chelsea team boss from getting in. Yeah. That is, we are making a statement. We are united. Normally, we banter each other. This and that.
You are united.
Around,
I think that's a great way to end this interview. You are united. Okay, yes. Dr. Kelechi Anyekude, Arsenal Football TV host, as well as superfan and analyst. Thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for having me.
Coming up on Channels Business Global, I'll be discussing the enormous potential of the African circular economy with Soren Bauer, president of Revolve Circular in Vienna, Austria. See you after the break. Welcome back to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be speaking with Soren Bauer, but until then, here's some company news for you. India's domestic stock market tumbled at the start of the week as the country's COVID situation has become critical. This fresh wave of the pandemic has hit the world's second most populous country with a deadlier force than the first, and active cases have shot up at an alarming rate. Earlier in the week, officials reported 314,835 new coronavirus cases, the highest one-day tally recorded anywhere in the world. Deaths rose by 2,104 in the same period, the country's highest death toll. Investors are worried about the pace of India's economic recovery as the expansion of coronavirus curbs has impacted business activity across several sectors. Both the Nifty 50 and the BSE Sensex dropped more than 2% at the close of Monday's trading. The US tech giant PayPal has revealed plans to set up a local wallet in China focused on cross-border payments. The group is the first foreign company to fully own a Chinese payments firm after its acquisition of GoPay in late 2020. The significant purchase and the intention to push forward with plans is considered a landmark in China's financial liberation amid an antitrust clampdown in fintech. Unlike domestic transfers, which are dominated by WeChat and Alipay, the market for cross-border transactions is yet to be penetrated. Tesco has been fined over £7.5 million for selling out-of-date food at 3 of its stores in Birmingham. Britain's biggest supermarket was handed the penalty by a judge on Monday. Inspectors found goods past their use-by date across a number of product lines, including children's meals, pork belly slices, Cadbury's trifles, Gingster's pastries and soup, which should have been removed from the shelf 17 days earlier. It was revealed in the worst-hit store in Bourneville, staff missed more than 250 opportunities to remove the products. Bosses blamed human error of individual staff and insisted the grim discoveries were isolated incidents. Tesco also argued that items were safe and that the use-by date simply served a brand and quality function. Now to our next topic, Africa's adoption of the circular economy. Looking beyond the current take, make, waste linear industrial model, a circular economy aims to redefine growth, focusing on positive society-wide benefits. Underpinned by a transition to renewable energy sources, the circular approach to managing an economy builds economic, natural and social capital. Africa's transformation to the circular concept is considered a crucial component to the continent's post-pandemic recovery. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Soren Bauer, president of Revolve Circular. Soren Bauer, thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global. I've tried to explain it myself, but it's probably best coming from you. What exactly is the circular economy and why do we need to adopt it?
Thank you for having me, first of all. What exactly is the circular economy is a tricky question because we find that there are different visions of what the circular economy is depending on who you talk to. Now, our vision at Revolve Circular is that, and I believe this is some basics where everyone agrees upon, is that it's about moving away from a linear take, make, waste economy to a more circular economy where you think about closed loops, where you think about value retention, where you rethink the way you produce.
Okay. That was a great summary there. I think that I actually got top marks in my opening explanation. There's been lots of discussion about the African continent adopting this policy. We have actually been doing this for centuries. You know, it's very rare that we use something once and throw it away. Even for those of us in the diaspora, we do keep a lot of our plastic. But in a more serious part of the discussion, we know that urbanization is accelerating across the continent, and that does proliferate slums, poor environmental conditions. These are all challenges of urbanisation. How can circularity address some of these issues?
Okay, I'm very happy to hear from you that you are aware that Africa is already adopting the circular economy. So this is nothing new. This is an umbrella concept which encloses many various things. I just want to point out three. Industrial symbiosis, where you look into how can one industry or the waste of one industry become the resource of another industry. Circular economy includes certain action imperatives, which is about repairing or remanufacturing. Now, putting that in the African context, you might be surprised and pleased to hear that one of the cities which is taking this forward is Lagos. There is a move towards circular Lagos, where the city of Lagos, supported by the African Circular Economy Network, is looking into, first of all, how do we start managing our waste much better, first of all, because many kinds of waste which Lagos as a city and the inhabitants of Lagos produce can be a resource for many industries. Furthermore, circular thinking can create a lot of jobs, because you would look at thousands or rather millions of Africans working in what's called the informal sector. If you support these people, all these thousands of people who actually work in repairing or remanufacturing something, you talk about circular economy. And that is what circularity can bring in various sectors, including water, energy and other sectors, to a better urbanizing Africa, if you will.
Absolutely, which is even more crucial considering we're all going through a post-pandemic recovery. I know that your organisation, Revolve Circular, have provided extensive insight for Africa in how they can adopt these, I wouldn't say new measures, but these measures. What has the reception been like? What has the reception been like in Lagos?
Okay, good question again. Let me try to correct you a little bit. We are a small Austrian non-profit, so it is not up to us to address circularity in Africa. I want to point out two organizations, just two, which do great work around circular economy in Africa. Number one is the African Circular Economy Network, which is a network of entrepreneurs on the continent who promote circularity. Number two is what's called the African Circular Economy Alliance, which was founded in 2017 by the governments of South Africa, Rwanda, and Nigeria. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire joined in 2018. So here are 5 African governments who are already working on circularity in Africa, because a circular economy in each economy you're addressing needs to necessarily set different priorities. And this is a movement which is kind of ongoing and driven by governments and entrepreneurs across the continent.
Fantastic. It's good to know that you've got backing from the government. Soren, I spoke to you a little earlier about the fact that in an African home, we very rarely throw away plastic. I think it's pretty well known that if you open a box or a plastic container of chocolate, it doesn't have the chocolate in there, unfortunately. But what are some of the other, I would say, good but small things that people can do to ensure that they're not wasting energy and product?
Okay, so circular economy is about, yes, people, how we consume, how much we consume, how little we consume, and how long we maintain or retain a given product. As you said, in the African context, many people retain what they have. There's a huge market for second-hand clothes from Europe and other industrialized countries. So circularity is part of Africans' daily lives, I would say, much more than in Europe, where we totally overconsume. And in order to drive circularity on a global level, Europeans and inhabitants of industrialized countries need to drastically reduce their consumption. Now, what can you do is, talking about plastics, in one of your neighbor countries, Cameroon, there is a company which uses plastic waste to shred it blend it with sand and produce extremely successful roof tiles for Cameroonian houses. You have a lot of people and several companies in Nigeria already looking at plastic waste as a resource. You look at a huge second-hand market for electronics and for remanufacturing of electronics, all of which are, if you will, circular activities or circular practices, which are part of what people are already doing.
Thank you, Soren Bauer, for that thorough breakdown there. I know a lot of people do think Africa is behind this race to bring green and clean, but we've actually been doing it for a long time, haven't we? Thanks for reminding us. Soren Bauer, President of Revolve Circular, thanks for joining me on Channels Business Global.
Thanks for having me.
Sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.